Don't look, Earthling, exclaimed the flustered alien hunter as she shed her garments. The twin sons of Nixara beat down like angry gods as Marcus Reynolds dragged himself across another endless dune. Sweat poured down his face in rivulets, washing clean lines through the dirt caked on his cheeks. His military boots sank deep with each step, making the already miserable journey twice as hard. "This is the last time I take a job without reading the fine print," he muttered, adjusting the pulse rifle that felt like it weighed a ton on his shoulders. 5 weeks into his contract with the Interstellar Enforcement Syndicate, and Marcus was seriously questioning his life choices. The money was great, enough to pay off his mountain of debt back home and live comfortably for years. But he hadn't signed up to be slow-roasted on a desert planet, with death lurking behind every sand dune. His communicator crackled to life with a burst of static that made him wince. "Reynolds, status report now," barked Director Valen's gravelly voice. "Still cooking nicely, Director." "No sign of the Blue Boys in this sector," Marcus replied, using the team's nickname for the Azure Marauders. "Keep moving. Intel says they have set up shop near the shifting wastes. Your team should reach your position soon." "Copy that," Marcus sighed. The Azure Marauders, space pirates with a nasty habit of leaving no survivors. Their latest raids had wiped out 3 colonies and left hundreds dead. The Syndicate had pulled together their best agents to hunt them down. And somehow Marcus had ended up on the team, despite being the only human in the bunch. As he reached the top of a particularly steep dune, something caught his eye. He dropped flat on his stomach and pulled out his binoculars, scanning the horizon. About 2 kilometers away, a group of figures clustered around a broken-down hover vehicle. The bright blue armor of the Azure Marauders stood out like a sore thumb against the golden sand. 5 armed pirates surrounded a 6th who was elbow-deep in the vehicle's engine. Marcus tapped his communicator. "Director, I've spotted a group of marauders southwest of my position." Nothing but static answered him. The planet's electromagnetic storms were infamous for knocking out communications at the worst possible moments. Marcus weighed his options. Wait for backup that might never come, or do some recon on his own. The decision was made for him when one of the pirates broke away from the group and started heading in his direction. Marcus slid back down the dune and ducked behind some rocks, checking his weapon and steadying his breathing. As the footsteps grew closer, the pirate appeared at the top of the dune. Before Marcus could take a shot, a blur of motion erupted from behind a nearby rock. A slender figure launched at the pirate, taking him down with a takedown so smooth it looked choreographed. The attacker moved like water, disarming the pirate and knocking him unconscious in seconds. Marcus aimed his rifle at the newcomer. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Earthling," warned a voice that somehow managed to be melodic, even while threatening him. The figure turned, and Marcus found himself staring at the most striking alien he'd ever seen. Her skin was a luminescent copper that seemed to glow under the harsh sunlight. Platinum hair was pulled back in an elaborate braid, with several strands framing a face that was both exotic and beautiful. Delicately pointed ears protruded through her hair, and her eyes, a brilliant emerald green, studied him with cautious interest. She wore tactical gear that hugged her athletic frame in all the right places. A fitted charcoal vest that left her shoulders bare and dipped low enough to be distracting, paired with form-fitting pants festooned with weapons. "You're not with the Marauders," she stated, lowering her weapon slightly. "And you're not exactly dressed for a desert picnic either," Marcus replied, keeping his rifle steady. "Who are you?" "Someone who wants those pirates dead as much as you do." She nodded toward his insignia. "Syndicate?" Marcus nodded. "Marcus Reynolds." "Selena Tarn," she replied. "Independent operative." "You mean mercenary?" A smile played at her lips. I prefer freelance problem eliminator. Those marauders down there, they're part of a larger group I'm tracking, Marcus said. I know, Selena replied, her smile vanishing. They've been hitting settlements across 3 systems. They attacked my home colony last month. Her voice hardened. I'm the only survivor. Marcus assessed his situation. His team was nowhere to be found. Comms were down, and he was facing 5 armed pirates. Having backup, even from a mysterious alien mercenary with a personal vendetta, seemed like his best option. What's your plan? He asked. Selena's emerald eyes gleamed. Kill them all, steal their ride, find their base, and blow it up. Marcus couldn't help but grin. Direct and to the point. I like that approach. Then let's move, Earthling, she said, checking her weapons. Those pirates aren't going to kill themselves. As they prepared to attack, Marcus found himself studying his new ally. There was something magnetic about her, a deadly grace combined with an undeniable charm that intrigued him. In this hellhole of a planet, he'd found an unexpected partner. Little did he know this chance meeting would change everything. The suns were starting to set as Marcus and Selena observed the pirate camp. The fading light cast long shadows across the sand, giving them extra cover for their approach. 5 targets, Marcus whispered. 2 by the hover vehicle. 1 standing guard. 2 inside that tent. Selena nodded. Her eyes narrowed in concentration. I'll take the guard and the 2 by the vehicle. You handle the ones in the tent. Marcus raised an eyebrow. 3 against 1. Pretty confident, aren't you? A hint of a smile played on her lips. I've been killing pirates since you were probably still learning which end of a blaster to hold, Earthling. It's Marcus, he corrected, and I'm pretty good at what I do. Prove it, she challenged. On my signal. They moved silently down the dune, using the growing darkness to their advantage. Marcus was impressed by Selena's stealth. Despite the sand, she moved like a ghost, each step precise and calculated. When they were close enough, Selena gave the signal. Marcus went right while she went left, both moving with practiced efficiency. The guard never saw Selena coming. She approached from his blind spot and had him in a chokehold before he could make a sound. The pirate struggled briefly before going limp. Marcus, meanwhile, slipped into the tent through a cut in the back. The first pirate died before he could even register Marcus's presence, a clean thrust to the base of the skull. The second reached for his weapon, but Marcus was faster. A quick, brutal struggle ended with the pirate's neck snapped. Outside, energy weapons fired. Marcus rushed out to see Selena engaged with the 2 pirates by the vehicle. She moved with incredible speed, dodging their fire while returning her own. 1 pirate was already down, a smoking hole in his chest. The second fired wildly as Selena rolled behind the vehicle for cover. Marcus raised his rifle and took aim. The shot was perfect. The pirate's head snapped back, and he crumpled to the ground. Selena emerged from behind the vehicle, giving Marcus an appreciative nod. Not bad for a human. It's Marcus, he reminded her, approaching the vehicle. And you're welcome. I had him right where I wanted him, she said with a smirk, but I suppose I can share the credit this time. They quickly searched the bodies and camp, gathering weapons, credits, and most importantly, information. Marcus found a data pad in the tent containing coordinates and communication logs. Jackpot, he said, scrolling through the information. This has their main base location and security protocols. Selena peered over his shoulder, close enough that he could smell a scent like exotic spices mixed with weapon oil. Strangely appealing. The Obsidian Chasm, she read. That's on the other side of the shifting wastes. At least a day's journey, even with the hover vehicle. I should report this to my team, Marcus said. Your communications are still down, Selena pointed out, and by the time you reestablish contact, the marauders might move. They never stay in one place for long. She was right, and Marcus knew it. The pirates had been elusive for months, always one step ahead of the syndicate. We go now, he decided. Hit them before they know their scouts are dead. Selena smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. I like how you think, Marcus. Maybe humans aren't as slow as they look. And maybe aliens aren't as annoying as they sound, he shot back with a grin. They loaded their gear onto the hover vehicle, a sleek craft designed for desert travel. Marcus took the controls while Selena monitored the scanner for any signs of pursuit. As they sped across the darkening desert, the temperature dropped rapidly. The vehicle had no climate control, and the cold night air of Nixara was becoming uncomfortable. We should find shelter for a few hours, Marcus suggested. Travel during the day when we can see potential ambushes. Selena pointed to a formation of rocks in the distance. Those caves provide natural shelter from both the cold and scanning technology. They guided the vehicle into a narrow ravine, eventually finding a small cave opening that offered protection from the elements. Marcus set up perimeter sensors while Selena gathered materials for a small, heat-efficient fire. Inside the cave, with the fire casting flickering shadows on the walls, they finally had a moment to properly assess each other. So, Marcus began cleaning his rifle. Independent operative, huh? How'd you end up hunting the Azure Marauders? Selena's expression darkened. They raided my home colony on Elysium Prime, killed everyone in my settlement, including my family. Her voice remained steady, but Marcus could see the pain in her eyes. I was away on a job. Came back to find everything gone. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly. She shrugged, the gesture too casual for the weight of her words. What about you? Humans rarely join the syndicate. Needed the money, Marcus replied, and I've got a particular skill set that's in demand. Special forces back on Earth. Earth, Selena repeated, testing the word. I've heard it's beautiful. Parts of it, Marcus agreed, though I haven't been back in years. Got tired of fighting other humans' wars. Figured I'd try fighting aliens' wars instead. He smiled to show he was joking. The pay's better, at least. They fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Marcus found himself studying Selena's profile. The elegant point of her ears, the subtle patterns in her copper skin that seemed to shift in the firelight. You're starring, she said without looking at him. Marcus didn't bother denying it. You're interesting to look at. Is that a human compliment? Just an observation. Selena turned to face him fully, her emerald eyes reflecting the flames. Humans are interesting too. So soft-looking, yet surprisingly hard to kill. We do our best, Marcus said with a half-smile. The temperature continued to drop outside, and despite the fire, the cave was growing colder. Selena shivered slightly, her light clothing not designed for Nixara's frigid nights. Here, Marcus said, shrugging off his thermal jacket and offering it to her. Selena hesitated before accepting it. Won't you be cold? Human resilience, he reminded her with a wink. She wrapped the jacket around her shoulders. It was much too large for her slender frame, making her look smaller and, oddly, more vulnerable. We should get some rest, Marcus suggested. I'll take first watch. Wake me in 4 hours, Selena said, settling against the cave wall. And Marcus? Yeah? Thanks for the jacket. It smells terrible, but it's warm. As Selena drifted off to sleep, Marcus kept his vigil by the cave entrance, rifle across his lap. The desert night was quiet, except for the occasional howl of wind through the rocks. He found his gaze repeatedly drawn to his sleeping companion. There was something about Selena that intrigued him, beyond her obvious beauty. A strength and determination that matched his own. Or maybe it was the shared understanding of what it meant to be a hunter, to pursue justice in a galaxy that rarely provided it. Whatever it was, Marcus knew their partnership, however temporary, was going to be interesting. Marcus jolted awake to the sound of energy weapons. Disoriented from sleep, he reached for his rifle before his eyes had fully opened. "We've got company," Selena shouted from the cave entrance, returning fire at unseen attackers. Marcus scrambled to her side, squinting into the pre-dawn darkness. "How many?" "At least 8, she replied, ducking as a blast struck the rock above her head. They found the hover vehicle. "Damn it," Marcus muttered. He should have hidden it better. "Marauders," Selena nodded grimly. "Looks like our friends from yesterday had backup." Marcus assessed their situation quickly. The cave provided decent cover, but they were effectively pinned down. The pirates had positioned themselves behind rock formations, making clean shots nearly impossible. "We need to move," he decided. "There's another exit at the back of the cave. I spotted it during my watch." Selena glanced at him, surprise evident in her eyes. "You didn't mention that earlier." "Always good to have an escape route," Marcus replied with a shrug. "Cover me while I grab our gear." He moved quickly, gathering their supplies while Selena maintained suppressive fire. The pirates were growing bolder, advancing closer to the cave entrance. "Time to go," Marcus said, slinging his pack over his shoulder and handing Selena hers. They retreated deeper into the cave, using the light from Marcus's tactical flashlight to navigate the narrow passages. Behind them, shouts and footsteps indicated the pirates were following. "Here," Marcus said, pointing to a tight crevice in the rock wall. "This leads out to the eastern ridge." Selena squeezed through first, her slender frame navigating the narrow space with ease. Marcus followed, his broader shoulders scraping against the rough stone. They emerged onto a rocky ledge overlooking a steep drop. The first rays of sunlight were just beginning to illuminate the desert landscape below. "Now what?" Selena asked, scanning for options. Marcus pointed to a narrow path winding down the cliff face. "That way. If we can reach the bottom, we can use the ravine for cover." A blast struck the rock near Selena's head, showering them with fragments. The pirates had found the exit. "Go," Marcus shouted, pushing Selena toward the path while returning fire. They descended as quickly as they dared, the unstable footing making each step treacherous. Above them, 3 pirates had emerged from the cave and were taking aim. Marcus fired upward, hitting one squarely in the chest. The pirate tumbled forward, his body plummeting past them to the rocks below. "Keep moving," Marcus urged as more blaster fire rained down. They were halfway down when disaster struck. A well-aimed shot hit the path just ahead of Selena, causing the rock to crumble beneath her feet. She lost her balance, arms windmilling as she teetered on the edge. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing her wrist just as she began to fall. The sudden weight nearly pulled him over as well, but he braced himself against the cliff face, muscles straining. "I've got you," he grunted, pulling her back to safety. Selena's eyes met his, a flash of genuine gratitude visible before her professional mask returned. "I didn't need your help," she said, though her shaky voice betrayed her. "But thanks." They continued their descent, finally reaching the bottom of the ravine. Without the hover vehicle, they were on foot in one of the most hostile environments in the sector. "The obsidian chasm is still at least 15 hours away on foot," Selena said, checking her navigation device. Marcus nodded grimly. "And we've got pirates on our tail." "Not all of them," Selena replied with a small, satisfied smile. She pointed upward, where the remaining pirates were still visible on the ridge. Taking careful aim with her energy pistol, she fired 3 rapid shots. 2 more pirates fell, their screams echoing briefly before being cut short. "Impressive," Marcus acknowledged. "I told you I was good," she said, holstering her weapon. "But we need to move. The rest will be coming around the long way." They set a punishing pace through the rugged ravine, the rising suns quickly turning the cool morning into a sweltering inferno. Marcus's canteen was half empty by midday, and the heat was taking its toll on both of them. "We need shade," he said, noting Selena's flushed skin. Despite her apparent adaptation to the desert, even she was struggling in the extreme conditions. They found temporary relief beneath an overhanging rock formation. As they rested, Marcus noticed Selena wincing as she adjusted her position. "You're hurt," he observed. "It's nothing," she dismissed. But Marcus wasn't convinced. "Let me see." After a moment's hesitation, Selena turned slightly, revealing a tear in her vest and a nasty-looking wound on her side. "Caught some rock shrapnel during the firefight," she explained. "That needs cleaning," Marcus said, reaching for his medkit. "Infection sets in fast in this heat." Selena began to protest, but then relented with a sigh. "Fine." She started to remove her vest to give him better access to the wound, then paused, giving him a stern look. "Don't look, Earthling," she warned, a hint of embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "Just because we're working together doesn't mean you get a free show." Marcus raised an eyebrow, amused by her sudden modesty after their life-or-death escape. "I've treated field wounds before. I'll try to contain my excitement." "See that you do," she replied dryly, turning slightly to give him access while maintaining her modesty. The wound on her side was worse than Marcus had initially thought. A jagged gash about 4 inches long, already showing signs of infection. He worked efficiently, cleaning the wound with antiseptic from his kit. Selena hissed in pain but remained still. "Your bedside manner needs work," she muttered through clenched teeth. "Sorry," he murmured. "Almost done." As Marcus applied a healing gel and bandage to the wound, he couldn't help but notice the intricate patterns on her skin, subtle spirals and lines that seemed to be natural markings rather than tattoos. They were beautiful, like living art. "The markings," he said, finishing with the bandage. "They're part of your species?" Selena nodded. "They develop as we age. Each pattern is unique." "They're beautiful," Marcus said honestly. A faint blush colored Selena's cheeks. "Thank you," she said quietly, then quickly added, "I'm decent now. You can stop pretending to be a doctor." They rested for another hour before continuing their journey. By late afternoon, they spotted a dust cloud in the distance behind them. "Vehicles," Selena said grimly. "They are tracking us." Marcus scanned the horizon, looking for options. "There." He pointed to a dark line in the distance, the beginning of the obsidian chasm. "If we can reach it before they catch up, we might have a chance." They pushed forward with renewed urgency, but the dust cloud grew larger with every passing minute. The pirates were gaining on them. "We're not going to make it," Selena said, her voice tight with frustration. Marcus assessed their surroundings with a tactical eye. About half a kilometer ahead, the ravine they were following widened into a small canyon, filled with massive boulders, perfect for an ambush. "Yes, we will," he said with determination. "I have a plan." "Does it involve getting shot? Because that's where we're headed." "Only if we're unlucky," Marcus replied with a grin. They reached the boulder field, just as the sound of engines became audible. Marcus quickly outlined his strategy, and Selena nodded in agreement, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "That's actually not terrible," she admitted, "for a human plan." They separated, each taking position behind different boulders. Marcus extracted a small device from his pack, a sonic disruptor, standard syndicate equipment for creating distractions. The first vehicle entered the canyon, a rugged desert transport carrying 4 armed pirates. Behind it came a second similar vehicle with 3 more. Marcus waited until they were deep in the boulder field before activating the disruptor. The high-pitched whine caused the pirates to stop their vehicles, hands clasping their ears in pain. That was the signal. Marcus and Selena opened fire simultaneously from opposite sides of the canyon. Caught in the crossfire, 3 pirates fell immediately. The others scrambled for cover, returning fire wildly. A pirate flanked Marcus's position, appearing suddenly with a vibro blade in hand. Marcus blocked the first strike with his rifle, the blade slicing into the weapon's stock. He kicked out, catching the pirate in the knee. As the attacker stumbled, Marcus drew his sidearm and fired point blank. "Marcus, behind you!" Selena's voice rang out. He spun to see another pirate taking aim. Before Marcus could react, Selena's energy bolt caught the pirate in the throat. The skirmish was over in minutes. 7 pirates lay dead among the boulders, and Marcus and Selena stood victorious, if somewhat battered. "Nice shooting," Marcus acknowledged, examining a graze on his arm where a bolt had come too close. "Nice plan," Selena returned, already salvaging weapons and supplies from the dead pirates. "And look what we've got now." She gestured to the 2 desert transports, still humming with power. "Our ticket to the Obsidian Chasm," Marcus said with satisfaction. They loaded their gear onto the more intact of the 2 vehicles. As Selena took the controls, Marcus noticed her wince again, her hand going to her bandaged side. "Let me drive," he offered. "You focus on not bleeding out before we get there." To his surprise, she didn't argue, sliding over to make room for him. It was a small but significant concession, a sign of growing trust. As they sped toward the darkening horizon, Marcus felt an unexpected sense of contentment. Despite the danger, despite the pain and exhaustion, there was something exhilarating about this partnership. "We make a good team," Marcus said quietly. Selena turned to look at him, a small smile playing at her lips. "Don't get used to it, Earthling. Once we take down the marauders, we go our separate ways." But there was something in her voice, a hint of uncertainty that made Marcus wonder if she truly believed that. "What should I call you then?" She considered for a moment. "Partner. At least until this is over." The Obsidian Chasm loomed ahead, a dark fracture in the desert landscape. Somewhere within its depths lay the Azure Marauders' base, and their opportunity for retribution. The Obsidian Chasm lived up to its name. Towering black rock formations rose on either side, their glossy surfaces reflecting the moonlight like obsidian mirrors. Marcus and Selena abandoned their vehicle a kilometer back, approaching the pirate stronghold on foot to avoid detection. "According to the intel," Marcus whispered, consulting the data tablet, "the main entrance is guarded by automated turrets and at least 8 sentries." Selena nodded, her emerald eyes scanning the jagged horizon. "There's another way in. Maintenance tunnels for the ventilation systems." "How do you know that?" Marcus asked, surprised. "Standard Marauder protocol. I've been hunting them long enough to know their patterns." She pointed to a narrow fissure in the chasm wall. "There. That should lead us to the maintenance axes." They moved silently through the darkness, their bodies close in the confined space. The fissure opened into a small cavern with a metal hatch embedded in the wall. Selena examined it with practiced eyes. "Security lock, but an outdated model. I can bypass it." She pulled tools from her belt and set to work. "Got it," Selena announced softly, as the lock disengaged with a click. The maintenance tunnel beyond was narrow and dimly lit by emergency strips. They crawled through on hands and knees, the metal grating digging into their palms. "Wait," Selena whispered, stopping suddenly. "Listen." Voices echoed through the ventilation system, 2 pirates discussing guard rotations. Marcus and Selena remained motionless until the conversation faded. "We need disguises," Marcus said as they continued forward. "We won't get far looking like this." The tunnel eventually opened into a small maintenance room, filled with equipment and spare parts. Selena immediately began searching through lockers, while Marcus secured the door. "Here," she said, tossing him a bundle of azure-tinted clothing. "Maintenance crew uniforms. Not exactly marauder armor, but it'll get us through the less secure areas." They turned away from each other to change. Though in the small room, privacy was largely an illusion. Marcus couldn't help but steal a glance as Selena slipped out of her tactical gear. She was breathtaking. Sensing his gaze, Selena looked over her shoulder, catching him mid-peak. "Don't look, Earthling," she admonished, though her tone was more teasing than angry. A slight blush colored her cheeks as she quickly donned the jumpsuit. "Sorry," Marcus said, not entirely convincingly. "Professional curiosity." "Is that what humans call it?" she replied with a raised eyebrow. "On Elysium, we call it asking for a punch to the throat." They slipped into a main corridor, adopting the casual stride of workers going about their business. The base was larger than expected, carved directly into the chasm walls and extending deep underground. "Command center should be 2 levels down," Selena murmured as they entered a lift. "That's where we'll find their operational plans and communication logs." The lift descended smoothly. When the doors opened, they found themselves in a busier section of the base. Pirates moved purposefully between rooms, carrying equipment and weapons. "Act natural," Marcus whispered as they stepped out. "Pretend you're thinking about all the illegal things you have to do today." They made their way toward the command center, tension building with each step. Just as they rounded a corner, a gruff voice called out behind them, "Hey, you two!" They turned to see a burly pirate officer approaching, his expression suspicious. "I don't recognize you." "I, Chips." Marcus tensed, ready for combat. But Selena stepped forward with a disarming smile. "Sorry, sir. New transfers from the shifting wastes outpost. Our chips haven't been programmed yet." She gestured vaguely. "Commander Crack said to report to maintenance level 3. The officer frowned, clearly unconvinced. "Cracks didn't mention any transfers." "It was an emergency reassignment," Selena insisted, moving subtly closer to the officer. "After the attack on our scouts," the officer's hand moved toward his weapon. "I'm going to need to verify." He never finished the sentence. Selena's concealed blade slipped between his ribs with surgical precision. Marcus caught the body before it could fall, dragging it quickly into a nearby storage room. "So much for stealth," he muttered, securing the door. The storage room was tiny, forcing them to stand chest to chest with adrenaline coursing through their veins. The attraction between them became impossible to ignore. Marcus found himself staring at Selena's lips. She noticed, her emerald eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his breath catch. "This is a terrible idea," she whispered, even as she leaned closer. "The worst," Marcus agreed, his hand moving to the small of her back. Their lips met in a kiss that started tentative, but quickly blazed into something fierce and hungry. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "Well," she said, trying to sound casual despite her breathlessness, "that was unexpected." "Very," Marcus agreed. "We should probably focus on the mission," Selena finished. A distant alarm shattered the moment. They sprang apart, instantly alert. "That's not for us," Selena said, listening intently. "Something else is happening." Marcus cracked the door open, peering into the corridor. Pirates were rushing past, weapons drawn. "Whatever it is, it's our chance," he said. "Command center, while they are distracted." The command center was a hive of activity. Marcus and Selena slipped in during the chaos, positioning themselves at an unoccupied terminal near the back wall. "Got it. They've uncovered something in the lower levels, some kind of ancient weapon," Selena said, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. Marcus leaned closer, studying the schematics that appeared on screen. The device was unlike anything he'd seen before. An elongated cylinder, with intricate patterns etched into its surface, pulsing with an eerie violet luminescence. "Pre-cataclysm technology," Selena breathed, her eyes wide, "from before the galactic rupture." "Can you tell what it does?" Marcus asked, a sense of dread growing in his stomach. She scrolled through the data. "It's a form of matter destabilizer. theoretically capable of disrupting atomic bonds across an entire planetary system. A planet killer, Marcus said grimly. No wonder they're excited. A new alert flashed across the screen. Deployment orders. The Marauders were preparing to transport the weapon within the hour, targeting the Elysium system. Selena's home. We need to destroy it, Selena said, her voice hardening. Now. They downloaded the base schematics and the weapon's location, then slipped out of the command center. The corridors were less crowded now, most pirates having been called to assist with the weapon preparation. The maintenance shaft was even narrower than the first, forcing them to crawl in single file. Through a grated opening, they could observe a vast chamber carved into the bedrock. In the center stood the weapon, surrounded by pirates and technical equipment. That's Captain Verox, Selena whispered, indicating a tall, gaunt alien overseeing the operation. His skin was a pale indigo, stretched tightly over his sharp features. He led the raid on my colony. The hatred in her voice was palpable. Marcus placed a steadying hand on her arm. We stick to the plan. Set charges on the weapon. Then get out. This isn't about revenge. It's about justice, she countered, but nodded reluctantly. They waited until a shift change created momentary commotion, then slipped from the shaft into the shadows of the storage area. Crates of equipment provided cover as they worked their way closer to the weapon. Marcus pulled explosive charges from his pack, compact but powerful devices designed to disable starship engines. Cover me, he whispered, preparing to make his mule. But before Marcus could advance, a commotion erupted at the chamber entrance. A group of pirates dragged in a struggling prisoner, a female alien with familiar platinum hair. Another Elysian, Selena gasped. From my colony. The prisoner was forced to her knees before Captain Verox. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the captain's cruel smile as he questioned her. Change of plans, Marcus decided. We save her, then destroy the weapon. Selena hesitated, torn between her mission and her kinsman. We might not get another chance at the weapon. We'll make it work, Marcus assured her. Trust me. Selena would create a diversion on the far side of the chamber while Marcus freed the prisoner and planted the charges. When her signal came, he counted to 3. Then all hell broke loose. An explosion rocked the far side of the chamber, followed by energy weapon fire and shouts of confusion. The pirates rushed toward the disturbance, leaving only 2 guards with the prisoner and weapon. Marcus moved swiftly, neutralizing both guards with slant efficiency. The Elysian prisoner looked up in shock as he cut her bonds. Who? A friend of Selena's, he explained quickly. Can you run? She nodded, determination replacing fear in her eyes. Get to the maintenance shaft, he instructed, pointing to their entry point. Wait there. As she hurried away, Marcus turned to the weapon. He had just begun placing charges when a cold voice stopped him. I wouldn't do that, human. Captain Verox stood 3 meters away, a high-powered blaster aimed at Marcus's chest. Behind him, 2 pirates dragged a struggling Selena, her face bloodied but defiant. Your companion is quite skilled, Verox remarked. She killed 6 of my men before we subdued her. Let her go. Your quarrel is with me. Verox laughed, the sound like grinding metal. My quarrel is with anyone who interferes with my plans. With this weapon and Elysium's phase crystals, the Azure Marauders will control this entire quadrant. You know, Marcus sighed dramatically. All you villain types sound exactly the same. Control this, dominate that. Have you considered a career in hospitality instead? Verox's face twisted in anger. You mock me, human. You're about to die. Yeah, Marcus shrugged. But before you pull that trigger, you should know one thing. And what's that? Verox sneered. You talk too much. Marcus dropped to the ground as Selena made her move, headbutting one captor and kicking the other. In the same motion, Marcus drew his concealed weapon and fired at Verox. The captain dodged with surprising speed, returning fire as he retreated behind the weapon. The chamber erupted into chaos once more as pirates poured in from all entrances. "The charges!" Selena shouted, fighting her way toward Marcus. "Not set," he called back, ducking behind a crate as blaster fire rained around him. They were outnumbered and outgunned. As pirates closed in from all sides, Marcus made a split-second decision. He threw his remaining charges toward the weapon and fired, detonating them prematurely. The explosion was more powerful than anticipated. The ancient device absorbed the blast, then began to pulse with increasing intensity, its violet glow turning an ominous crimson. "It's destabilizing," Selena cried. "We need to get out now." They fought their way toward the maintenance shaft, covering each other with practiced coordination. The rescued Elysian was waiting, helping pull them up, as energy discharges began emanating from the weapon. "Move," Marcus urged as they crawled frantically through the shaft. Behind them, the weapon's pulsing grew more erratic, the entire base beginning to shake. They emerged into an upper corridor to find the base in full evacuation mode. Pirates rushed toward escape pods and ships. "This way." Selena led them toward a secondary hangar where smaller vessels were kept. They had almost reached it when a blast knocked them off their feet. Captain Verox stood in their path, his pale face contorted with rage. "You've ruined everything," he snarled, raising his weapon. Before he could fire, the rescued Elysian threw herself at him. They tumbled to the ground, struggling for control of the blaster. "Go!" she shouted to Selena and Marcus. "I'll hold him." Selena hesitated, but Marcus pulled her toward the hangar. "She's giving us a chance." They commandeered a small transport ship, Marcus taking the controls while Selena handled weapon systems. As they lifted off, the base began to collapse, sections of the chasm wall crumbling inward. "What about my kinsman?" Selena asked, her voice tight with emotion. Marcus scanned the hangar exit, hoping to see the Elysian escape. Instead, they witnessed Captain Verox staggering toward an escape pod alone. "I'm sorry," Marcus said softly. Selena's expression hardened. "Take us around. I want to make sure he doesn't escape." Marcus complied, bringing their ship in a tight arc as Verox's pod launched. Selena targeted it with cold precision. "For my people," she whispered, and fired. The pod exploded in a brief, bright flare. Behind it, the Marauder base imploded as the ancient weapon released its accumulated energy, collapsing the entire chasm in a spectacular display of a destructive power. When they were safely away, Selena sat motionless, tears streaking her copper cheeks, but her expression was one of grim satisfaction. "It's over," Marcus said quietly, moving to sit beside her. "My colony is avenged," she agreed. "But at what cost? Another of my kind gone." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "The mission is complete." "That depends," she replied, "on whether you still want to go your separate ways." In response, Selena leaned forward and kissed him. The vessel carried them away from Nixara, into the star-filled vastness of Psi. 6 months later, the Elysian outpost had transformed into a thriving community. Located on a verdant moon in the Cerulean system, Nova Haven had become home to nearly 300 survivors, refugees who had escaped the Marauder attacks and scattered across the galaxy. Marcus stood on the balcony of the modest dwelling he shared with Selena, watching the twin moons rise over the forest canopy. "A credit for your thoughts." Selena's arms wrapped around his waist. "Just appreciating how much has changed," he replied, turning to face her. Selena looked radiant in the moonlight, her copper skin glowing. But the most remarkable change was the gentle curve of her abdomen, evidence of the miracle growing within her. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked, placing a hand on her belly. "The morning sickness has finally stopped," Selena replied with relief. A human Elysian pregnancy was unprecedented, something the elders had declared biologically impossible until Selena's condition proved otherwise. "The council wants to meet with us tomorrow," Selena said. "I understand their scientific curiosity," Marcus sighed, "but you're not a research specimen." "Our child represents hope for my species," Selena reminded him. The Elysians had been facing extinction for generations. The possibility that humans might be compatible with them had profound implications. "Feel that?" Selena placed his hand back on her abdomen. Marcus felt a tiny flutter of movement. "Already practicing combat moves like its father," Selena said, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "Or maybe dancing like its mother," Marcus suggested. "I don't dance," Selena protested. "Everyone dances. Some just do it with more weapons than others." She laughed, that musical sound he'd grown to love. The following morning, they met with the Elysian Council. "We have been conducting genetic research," Elder Lyra explained. "The results are extraordinary. Human and Elysian DNA share certain markers that predate the Great Rupture. That perhaps in distant antiquity, our species were unified," Elder Naren said, "or at least closely related enough to interbreed. Your child may be the first of a new beginning, not just for Elysians, but for both our peoples." That evening, as the settlement celebrated, Marcus led Selena to a secluded overlook. He placed a ring crafted from polished obsidian and luminescent crystals in her palm. "On Earth, when two people decide to build a life together, this is a tradition," he said. "Is this because of the baby?" Selena asked. "It's because I love you," Marcus said. "Baby or no baby." Tears glistened in her emerald eyes as she slipped the ring onto her finger. "Yes," she whispered. "To everything." Later, as they announced their engagement, Marcus noticed Selena watching him with a mischievous smile. "What?" he asked. "I was reflecting about that first day on Nixara, when I told you not to look," she whispered in his ear. Marcus chuckled. "Best order I ever disobeyed." "I'm glad you did," Selena admitted, her hand resting on her growing belly. As the celebration continued around them, Marcus contemplated the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a chance encounter in a desert wasteland to creating new life and possibly a new future for two species. Some stars, it seemed, were destined to cross paths.